Hello everyone and welcome back to another Mastering the Basics lesson. I just wanted to open up this part of our course because we're going to be looking at some really important upcoming lessons. And we're going to be really exploring and learning as much as we can about tense, English tense. Now, this is super important in all aspects of language, the English language, whether it's in speaking, listening, reading, writing, whichever part we're currently using. And tense is super important, and it's probably one of the parts of English that you also are thinking, I really want to improve my understanding of tense. I really want to be able to speak accurately using a variety of tenses. Of course, we use tense to indicate, to show different times of events that happened, and just generally to indicate time in our language. So over the next few lessons, we're going to be really exploring and looking at how we can use different tenses. And over the whole course, we'll be coming back to tense a few times and having extra lessons on it too. It's not something that one lesson you can say, okay, thanks, David, I've mastered it now. As many skills require, it does need extra time, extra effort, and probably extra care too. So we're going to have a few lessons now really going quite in depth into the use of different tenses. And of course, we'll be building on your use of tense and grammar throughout the whole course. So I hope you're excited for this part of the course. And I think it's time that we jump right in. Before we jump into the really specific information regarding different tenses, we should really have a quick overview of what tenses really are. And it's important to note that there are 12 main tenses in the English language. Sometimes teachers will say 16. However, we're going to be learning it as 12 main tenses. And I just find that it's easier to break it down into 12. And basically these cover different types of actions, but also 3 time events too: past, present, or future. So if we consider this timeline, we have past, present, and future. Tenses are used to be able to speak about time. So without the tenses that we have, it would be difficult to do so in such detail. Here we have present tense. I often eat sandwiches for lunch. This is something of a habit or a routine, and the present simple tense is great for that. But here's just a quick example of talking about something that's happening now, something that's a routine now. I often eat sandwiches for lunch. Here's something in the past. I ate noodles for lunch yesterday. So that started and finished in the past. But what about an event that started in the past and finished later in the past? How could we do that? Well, unless we have a good understanding of tenses, it would be difficult to do this. But in the English language, because the tense system is slightly more complicated than some languages, we can do this quite simply by using the past continuous tense. I was playing badminton on Saturday and Sunday. So there we can use a tense structure, was playing, to indicate that it was an ongoing process, a continuous process in the past. Okay, so let's take a look at these 12 tenses in a bit more detail. Now, at first, this might be a little bit overwhelming, and I'll talk through it a little bit with you now, and we will be looking at this chart in more detail over the next few lessons. So here we have our 12 tenses, but on the top we can see the 3 times that really we'll be using to talk about: past, present, and future. Now, each of these 3 times have also 4 types of actions. Simple, continuous, like we just saw, perfect and perfect continuous. So depending on when the action is, we can also say what type of action it was. Simple being I ate noodles yesterday. That's a past simple tense. I was eating noodles yesterday would be past continuous. So today we're going to be looking just at the present tense. So we're going to be focusing on the present tense, the present simple, and the present continuous. So we'll be talking about these in detail. So let's begin. We use the present simple when an action is happening now or happens often. And we can do this with subject plus verb, just the normal present tense verb, and the object. We read at the library. Kevin reads at the library. Now you may notice there an S has been added to our verb read, and that's because in the third person singular, so third person is he, she, it, Kevin is a he, we add an S to the verb. Kevin reads at the library. This is just a case of remembering the rule. In the present simple tense, we add an S in third person singular. He, she, it. Or if it's a boy or girl's name, Kevin. For example, Kevin reads at the library. Now, these are all positive examples. So we have subjects of we and Kevin. Verb is the same. Read and the object is the library. In the middle, at the is a prepositional phrase to talk about where this is happening. We read at the library. Kevin reads at the library. But how could we use this in a negative way to say something isn't happening? Quite simply, we use subject plus either don't or doesn't plus verb and plus object. He doesn't enjoy long travel. I don't exercise at the gym. So using doesn't or don't in the negative form. Of course, third person pronouns, he, she, it, we would use doesn't. And for don't, we have I, you, we, or they. They don't exercise at the gym. We don't exercise at the gym. So we just need to remember which we use, doesn't or don't, depending on the subject pronoun. Okay, I just want to give you more information on the point earlier, adding an S to the verb. Kevin reads. There's a bit more detail on this that actually makes it slightly more trickier, but it's definitely worth us looking at this now. So when the subject is third person singular nouns, the verb changes form. We need to change the spelling, and pretty much always, or close to that, often we add an S. Although sometimes, depending on the spelling, we might not just add an S. Again, third person singular, he, she, it. The name of a boy and girl, or the name of a thing, or a living thing for it. Okay, so here we have most verbs, most of the time, just adding an S. So with the subject being third person singular, swim would become swims. He swims at the pool. Sally swims at the pool. The dog swims at the pool. So there we've gone through he, she, and it, the dog, it, living thing, and we need to add this S to the verb. So play would become plays. Run would become runs. Think would become thinks. Now, depending on the spelling at the end of the verb, will change how we change the form. It might not just be an S that we add. And we can see here there's more rules. So if the verbs are ending in consonant plus Y. So a consonant, any letter that is not A, E, I, O, U. So for spy, we have the consonant P plus Y. So consonant plus Y, we don't just add an S, we need to add an I-E-S, and we need to take the Y away. So spy would become spies. Study would become studies. Hurry, hurries. Cry, cries. This is really important to be aware of and try and be accurate with in our speaking and English language, because it's easy to make mistakes with this. However, it takes practice, it takes time. So do understand that this isn't going to be something that you have 100% control of straight away. Building this fluency will take time, but it's important we know the rules. So on top of that, we also have a different spelling for verbs ending O, SH, TCH, X and double S. So mix would become mixes. David mixes the ingredients together. So that's still present simple tense. I just need to change mix, the verb in the sentence, to be a different form, mixes. Go becomes goes, catch becomes catches, miss becomes misses. So there we have some more information about verb form in present simple tense in the third person singular. So definitely worth writing some notes down on this and practicing with this rule as much as you can. Okay, so one other form I want to show you in the present simple tense is how to make questions in this tense. And it's quite straightforward. We have our awesome question words here, our 6 W's I like to call them. What, where, when, how, why, and who. So these are words that I use a lot in teaching, and we'll revisit them a lot throughout the course. So any of these words, if you want, plus, and here we have our formation from the present simple tense. Am I, and then you can use any of the verbs. Are you, are we, are they. Is he, is she, is it. And of course you can add our 6 W's before any of these helping verbs, these am, are, is. We can add them before that. So here's an example. Where are you visiting? Where are you visiting? Are you singing at the show? 2 things to note. I don't use one of the 6 W words in this last example. I use are straight away. Are you singing at the show? And I also add a bit more information in blue, at the show. So this is how we can use the present simple tense for making and forming questions. So really important in terms of creating questions, which is important, of course, for conversation. Okay, let's move on to the present continuous tense. So we use the present continuous when an action is happening now or happens often. Here's an example. I am singing in the rain. And we have the subject I plus am, are or is, plus the verb plus the object. I'm buying a pair of shoes. This is for I. I am, contraction. We shorten this, I am, into I'm. I'm buying a pair of shoes. Contractions are super important, and generally speaking, native speakers 9 times out of 10 will contract, and it's definitely a very native sounding way of speaking. I'm buying a pair of shoes. Okay, how about for you, we, and they? So you, we, they plus are plus verb ing plus the object. You are listening to the radio. How could we contract this? Okay, it would be you're listening to the radio. So well done if you got that right. Here's another example. Sally and David are making a sculpture. So this would be Sally, she, and David, he. So you might think, why not Sally and David is? But because there are two of them, the real pronoun here would be they. Sally and David, they. They are. Sally and David are making a sculpture. So we use are for you, we, and they. And for third person singular, he, she, it, we use is plus verb ing plus the object. She is, she's working at a travel agent. The computer is making weird noises. How could we make the contraction? The computers making weird noises. Very common in speech to use that contraction. And there we have our third person singular pronouns, he, she, it. Okay, so that is how we make the present continuous tense depending on the subject and pronoun that we're using. Very important, and there could be a lot of practice here, so again, worth noting all of this down. But here we will take a look at the negative form of the present continuous. So we'll start up here, you're not. So on the left in this row, we have one way of using the negative form in a contraction, but there's actually two ways that we can do it, and both are correct. So we can say, you're not playing, or we could also say, you aren't playing. Now, it doesn't matter which one you use, really, both are okay. And it's probably good to be able to use both as well. You're not playing. Just as good as you aren't playing. And we can see all the different contractions listed here. So on the left, we have the contraction between the pronoun and our verb, auxiliary verb, am, are, and is. And on the right, we have our contraction between our auxiliary verb, the helping verb, are and is, with not. Are not, aren't. Is not, isn't. So definitely worth spending some time looking at this table. Here's a couple of examples. I'm not talking about my girlfriend. I am only has one form of contraction. I'm. He's not going to the office. So this is using the contraction of he is, he's. He's not going to the office. He isn't. That would be the second form of the contraction. He isn't going to the office. Exactly the same as he's not going to the office. Just slightly different in the formation of how we make it. Okay, so that is the negative form. How about we take a look at making questions in the present continuous? So again, we can use our 6 W words here. And quite simply, we can plus them like this. Are, you, we, they, plus verb, plus question mark. Or is, and then he, she, it, plus verb, ing, of course, plus question mark. When is he visiting? Why are you doing that? And I've just added this extra piece of vocabulary to clarify what I'm talking about. Why are you doing that? And quite simply, I'm following the table and the flow above in making these questions in the present continuous. And that is the end of our lesson for the present simple and present continuous, but it's of course time for our animated video now.